Hey folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. I hope everyone's doing well. It's Thursday, October the 23rd, and we are 2 days away from the Joseph Parker Fabio Wardley fight, which is to be held in London in the UK this coming Saturday. It's a fight I'm looking forward to. Do I have any gripes about the fight? Well, actually I do. And it's to do with money. It's to do with the money that I would have to pay to watch it on pay-per-view. Though I understand pay-per-view prices aren't just a case of price gouging, that there are geopolitical reasons. Including, I listened to a fellow the other day talking about how pay-per-view prices for boxing, believe it or not, are linked to the worldwide price of oil. Complicated argument, but I suppose that everything in the world is intertwined. But that doesn't make it any easier for me, who, if I'm to pay for pay-per-view, I'll have to shell out $59.99 plus tax, which will bring me $66-67 for one good fight and an undercard that, quite frankly, I'm simply not very interested in. So there's my gripe. You probably, if you've watched this channel much over the last few days, you will already know which way I'm leaning, because I did a really good interview yesterday with Julian McGowan, and we both expressed our views about how we thought the fight would go. But if you haven't seen those, let me just outline where I think the fight's going to end, and a little bit about the fighters. How about that? So Joseph Parker is the bookies' favourites, at least in my jurisdiction. Decimal odds 1.29, I think, versus Fabio 3.85. Joseph Parker is a much more experienced fellow. 36-3. He's only lost to Dillian Whyte, Anthony Joshua, and Joe Joyce. Not necessarily in that order. I can't actually remember the order. Whereas Fabio Wardley is 20-0-1, which was a draw with Fraser Clark. Interesting to note, though, and this is worthwhile remembering, when Joseph Parker had 20 fights under his belt, he was 20-0 with 18 KOs. So, you might be listening to a lot of people who say, oh, well, Fabio Wardley's 20-0 and he's got this amazing KO record, which is all true. But contextually, if you'd looked at Joe Parker's career at the same point in time, you could have said the same about Joseph Parker. These are things that, sometimes people skip over, right? Or maybe they don't know, or they can't be arsed to look up. Joseph Parker, of course, has fought a much higher level of competition. Like I say, he's lost to the aforementioned fighters, but he's beaten a lot of very good fighters. And he's simply been in the ring with a lot more fighters. Like, you would probably say that Fabio Wardley's best outing, qualitatively wise, was against Fraser Clark or Justice Hooney. Whereas, you can look at Joseph Parker and you can say, Andy Ruiz, for example, Deontay Wilder, Zhilei Zhang. The quality that they've each been in the ring with is different. You could counterpoint that by saying, well, experience doesn't really matter when you're in the ring. And I think that is something that I heard Fabio say the other day, and it's not entirely mistaken. This is a step up for Fabio, of course. It's a great fight for both of them, and I commend both fighters for taking the fight. They both got mandatories they could sit on. I've talked about that in previous videos. And so choosing to fight each other rather than just taking some sort of, tomato can knockover job is commendable. And the prize, if you like, for the winner is a shot at Alexander Usyk in 2026 for undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. So you can see how this is a very big deal for both fighters. if Fabio is to prevail, it will be the wonderful story, right? From unlicensed white-collar fighter to fighting for undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. There's a movie in there, right? Joe Parker, many people say he's always been the bridesmaid, not the bride, even though he was a world champion, of course, back some years ago, but that he deserves this opportunity and that he should have had this opportunity against Daniel Dubois, which he didn't get, and he's sort of been waiting in the wings. And yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. The boxing sort of opinions that you'll read out there, they do sometimes fall into two camps. Some people say Parker's going to just steamroll his way through Fabio, that Fabio's got no business being in the ring with Joe Parker. And other people say that Fabio's going to destroy Joe Parker, that Joe Parker is not all that he's made out to be, and that Fabio's going to slaughter him. I think both those opinions are extreme, and they're not really well founded in fact, even though, of course, anything can happen in heavyweight boxing. I think these two guys are more closely matched than many people think. My own personal opinion is that Joe Parker is the more technically adept, the more schooled, and has that experience that he can draw on. And Fabio has potentially more power, though heavyweight boxing, and virtually any heavyweight boxer could knock out any other heavyweight boxer if they land correctly. But Fabio also has that unconventionality, if that's even a word. Yes, I think it is a word. And that he might do something that is different to what people would expect. And that can pose problems, as Coach Julian McGowan was saying yesterday. Sometimes it's hard to train for crazy, right? Fabio also, without a shadow of a doubt, has a fighting spirit. And I mean, I like both these fighters. Fabio is probably one of my favorite British fighters. And Fabio has that, I'm going to go out on my shield, I'm never going to give up kind of heart, I guess that's the right word. And that makes him so likable and so, you want to cheer for him. But at the end of the piece, how do I think this is going to go? I think Joe Parker's going to work off a jab. Joe Parker's going to have more schooling, more skill. He's going to do very similarly to what Justice Hooney did. And I think that's going to frustrate Fabio. And I think Fabio is going to try very hard, especially as the rounds tick over and he realizes he's behind on the cards. I think he's going to try then to go for that knockout, and he might well get counterpunched by Joe Parker. So I would not be surprised. I think Joe Parker's going to win, and I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Parker's able to stop Fabio, because Fabio's going to basically, throw caution to the wind, because Fabio will know that a knockout is his only opportunity, and he might well get clipped in doing so. Having said that, I'm very, very open to the idea that Fabio could land the big right. Zhilei Zhang knocked down Parker twice. Joe Joyce stopped Parker. I mean, Parker has been down. And if Fabio is able to do that, we know that Fabio's a fabulous finisher. So it could go that way. But I would say 60-40 in favor of Joe Parker. There's a possibility that Joe could stop Fabio. But if I was advising somebody to put a bet on, which nobody should ever listen to me on that subject, but if I was advising somebody to put a bet on, I'd say go with the favorites here, because that's where the probability is. Having said that, I'm putting a purely emotional underdog bet on, sort of fingers crossed, if you like, that Fabio is able to land that big one. And that's just to provide a little bit of entertainment, extra entertainment, if you like, when I'm watching the fight. Who do I want to win? I honestly don't really care. I like both these guys. I'd like them both to win if that was possible. You know what I mean? So I don't have a dog in the fight. I'll be very keen to watch the fight. I really hope it doesn't end too soon. I think the winner would benefit by having 8 or 9 rounds under their belt, especially if they're going to be facing Usyk next year. So if I can see 7 or 8 rounds before a stoppage, I'll be very happy. But like I say, I think Joe Parker's going to pull it off. It's a game of probabilities, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. I just don't think that Fabio's just, you never know, right? But I just think that Joe is going to be able to pull this off. Anyways, I guess that sounds a bit wishy-washy. And it kind of is a bit wishy-washy in a way, because I'm not really super committed to either fighter, and I can see a path clear for any number of outcomes. The only thing I can't see a path clear to is I can't see a path clear to a points win for Fabio. I just don't think that's on the cards. I think if Fabio is going to win, that it has to be by way of stoppage, whereas I could see Joe winning on points or stoppage. So again, I'm sort of covering the field here, but I think it's going to be Joe. Let me know who you think, whether you're going to watch the fight, what you think of the pay-per-view. I think it's £25 in the UK. I haven't checked what it is in the US, but it'll be comparable to what I have to pay here in Canada, which for a card that is, it's weak other than the main event, I think it's a bit extortionate. Maybe I'm just getting a bit cheap in my old age. You never know. Anyways, that's all from me for the moment. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, please share, please subscribe if you can, if you haven't yet already. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Also look forward to having a debrief on this fight when it's all said and done. And we'll see whether I was right or wrong in my predictions. Occasionally I get them right, but hey, like I say, nobody should be following my advice as though it's gospel, that's for sure. Okay, that's all I got for the moment. Most importantly, wherever you are in the world, have a fabulous day. Thanks. Cheers. Bye-bye.